Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, people from across the world who are listening to us right now, people in Pakistan and everywhere, you need to sit down together with me because I am here again with another phenomenal episode of Global Women Insight. Global Women Insight is an initiative that we have taken in COVID times to bring together women from across the world who had done phenomenal work and amazing work in their careers and shaping the world around us. So tonight, this evening, my guest is Fiona Macaulay. Fiona is a phenomenal intersection, creating the leadership across the world. She is intersection of innovation, leaderships, global development, and she is a serial entrepreneur, educator, and committed community builder. One of the phenomenal things that I have learned from Fiona is that there's nothing impossible in the world and you can do anything that you like. One of the important initiatives that I have been following for quite long is Women Innovators and Leaders Development Network, summit that regularly happens in the network that Fiona carries, and we'll also ask her about that. Is the summit that will be happening in October, and let's welcome Fiona in our studios. Hello.
Great. Hi, great to be here. Hello to your audience.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fiona, for joining us. And when I was looking at your profile, I was thinking, rather than me sharing a lot of things that you have been taken and initiatives that you had taken so far in your career, in your young age, and now you are leading, let us find it from yourself that how this entire journey began and how the story of Fiona started and what has triggered you to become what you are today.
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here and to connect with your audience. And I invite, if you're watching, please tell us in the chat box, tell us your name, where you're joining us from. Would love to know the mark that you're making in the world. So thank you for asking about my story. I think that the most important story I want to share with you happened about 20 years ago. I was in my mid-20s and I had started a social enterprise around helping low-income people get ahead economically. So getting access to a safe place to save money, helping young people learn skills that could lead to jobs, and helping micro-entrepreneurs successfully be able to be earning money, making profit, and accessing loans if they wanted to. And my business, and so I am Canadian, I had started my business in New York City, and my business had been hovering around the $800,000, $900,000 US dollars in annual revenues, which means that I was having some positive impact in the world, but I definitely had the potential to have more positive impact. And as you know, many of your viewers know, it can be a real struggle to run a small business because you have to wear so many different hats. You're the head of marketing, you're the accountant, you're head of human resources. And so I heard about an initiative that was supporting US women business owners to take their annual revenues over $1 million. And here what was very compelling is that in the US, and I wonder if this similar statistic might also be true in Pakistan and the region, is that women and men start businesses at equal rates. So you have men and women starting businesses at equal rates. But when you look at businesses that are growing, there are about 99% of those are men. So men and women are starting businesses at equal rates, but if you look at the businesses, the most influential businesses, it's the men who are leading those. So this initiative was called Make Yours $1 Million Business. And I thought, I want to be one of those 1% of US women business owners that take their businesses over $1 million in annual revenues. So I got into the program. I received leadership coaching. I had strong women saying, Fiona, what do you need to do to have a greater impact in the world? And that was really what started me on the journey of being able to really scale my impact and to really grow professionally as a social entrepreneur and business owner. And so what was so critical to me in that experience was having people who helped me have an even greater level of ambition. It was it was the leadership coaching, and it was being networked with other women who could both support me, teach me, and give it to me straight when I was making mistakes.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah, wonderful. When you begin your journey, often there are a lot of challenges, right? So those people definitely made a lot of impact in your lives, right? So is it like the two things, right, Fiona? One is that you educate yourself, a lot of education, a lot of book reading. I mean, or substance reading, and equipping yourself with the knowledge. But there's another thing, is that skill, right? So how you balanced, I've seen your profile. There are a lot of people who are, I mean, they're big business, not big business owners, but they're not much of having much of, say, degrees. But you had simultaneously not only build your knowledge, but at the same time build your skill as well. So what has made you to jumble up both important aspect of your life, right?
Well, I think I personally feel that I have gained the most skills by learning by doing, hands down.
Yeah.
And through role models, I find that over my career, I have observed people and thought, I admire this person. What is it that I admire about them? And how is it that they are living their life? And what are the behaviors that they're using? And how are they conducting themselves that is leading them to be very effective? And have looked at how I, over the years, could learn from others to be able to be even more effective. And I think a lot of this comes down to behaviors. It's how we're choosing to show up in the workplace. I think it's how we're choosing to show up in our communities, and how we choose to show up it can be very affected by our intentions. And I think for the first decade of my career, especially in those early startup years, there were so many stresses, making payroll, being someone who was presenting new ideas, and were other people going to buy into my ideas as well. So I think that I was strong on execution. I also think that I was weak on my intentionality of thinking about how I was showing up in the course of getting all of those kind of ambitious goals off the ground. So definitely that's something that I have learned. And for a while, I had this little sticker that said stop, like up on the side of my computer, meaning stop and remember how in this conversation on the phone, or in this conversation with someone in my office, how I wanted to be showing up for them. So that regardless of what storms I might have around me, or how busy that day might be, or when I had little kids, how sleep deprived I was at the office, to remember that as a leader, I was setting the weather for the people around me. And as a leader, I was setting the weather for my organization. So that how I was choosing to show up, the way that I was showing up in a way that supported people, allowed me to listen to people and have them know that they would be heard, that I came to understand was very critical in my leadership role.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is so important. When you begin your career, you had initiated several things. For example, I've seen that you had initiated Youth Economic Opportunities Network. Then you became the CEO of Making Sense International. So all these initiatives, did you take it simultaneously, or you build it organically? Because sometimes you say, okay, this is not working, okay, especially when you are a social enterprise or an entrepreneur or running an enterprise. You say, okay, this is not working, but this might be shifted or shaped in a different manner. Might that work? So how did you all these enterprises that you initiated, are they built through several strategic thinking, or it just happened like
Yeah,
that?
that's a great question. So the first company I started was when I was 26 years old, and this was the Global Professional services firm, a consulting company called Making Sense International. So that was my first very kind of like serious, I had entrepreneurial activities previously, but this was my first kind of serious formal business. And I I was the founder CEO of that company for 18 years before I sold it. And I see that company as having several chapters. The first was the startup phase. And in the startup phase, it's just like one big blur of activities. You're trying to get your business model to work, meaning you're trying to settle on a product or service that people are willing to pay for or funders are willing to fund through grants that is sustainable and allows you to, in my case as a social entrepreneur, to also have the impact that I wanted to have and to be able to scale. So once you hit on your business model, you're then sort of in a growth phase where you have an opportunity to leverage all that hard work you've put in. You really have a better understanding about how to serve your customer. And you can sort of have this, greater stability. So I would say that my startup phase, and this is not unusual, probably was about 2 or 3 years to really like hit on the right business model. And part of that meant letting go of some things I wanted to do. So for example, at the beginning, I thought that I could serve the global development market and the US market. And my team was too stretched. And in fact, the business models are very different for those two markets. And I realized that where I had greater traction was in the global development market. Okay, ding, ding, ding. Let's focus on that. So after focusing on that for about 5 years, this is kind of to get to your question, I had observed one of my character strengths is curiosity and a love of learning. So I'm very like curious about how other models are working. And one of the things that I observed was at that time, and this is now about 2005, I observed that the people who were working in various countries around the world to help young people get access to economic opportunities, that there was no global platform to connect us all. So you might be doing work in Pakistan, I might be trying to do similar work in the US, another colleague might be doing similar work in Uganda, but we were all reinventing the wheel. Exactly. But I knew from working in the global development sector that global conferences existed, for example, for the microfinance sector, research agendas, donor meetings. And I thought, well, why doesn't this exist for those of us trying to help low-income youth? And for about 2 years, I would go around muttering about that. Like, why doesn't a big donor like the World Bank or USAID or DFID start a global platform to help us all help more young people faster, to help that money be better used? And then finally, I thought, I need to stop complaining about this issue and I need to do something about it. So that second initiative, the Global Youth Economic Opportunities Network, I started, I would say, as my second social venture, after a decade of experience. So at that point, I was sort of in my mid-30s and launched that second venture. And by the time I sold my social enterprise, another 8 years later, in fact, that network had grown to be kind of the largest sustained network of organizations working on issues of youth, global youth unemployment. And I feel like we had a big role, and we received lots of feedback and accolades about how we had really helped to professionalize the sector. And as a result, millions more of young people benefited, and all those resources were better deployed. And I think that we offered a lot of motivation for professionals who were working on these issues, because now they had a community of people who they could connect with.
Yeah.
So, but in order to make this kind of I would say my most recent professional chapter, which began about 5 years ago, which is when I started teaching at one of America's leading business schools and starting a network focused on supporting women in the global development sector to be more influential and to help organizations do more around equity, diversity, and inclusion. That chapter really only could have started because I let the other work go. I had to make space in order to make this career pivot and to make space in order to build out networks in new areas around women's leadership and develop kind of a new business model to be able to focus on this work of advancing women's leadership in the global development sector.
So, Fiona, you had shifted from helping the young people to women. So, why women? Why women are important for you to help them, and you develop this amazing network for helping women. So, why women? Often people ask because we have also been celebrating this 20 years of Human 1325, our gender equality. There are a lot of noise across the world for making women to be there on the tables, right? So why women?
Great question. Well, from spending 20 years in the global development sector, I observed that organizations like international NGOs, local NGOs, large for-profit consulting firms, academic institutions, all of those stakeholders we're really, it's an industry comprised of great organizations and great people. And at the same time, it's very much a helping profession, which is about how can we help others to do better. And I had observed that there was an opportunity for us to actually look inward, to enter our own organizations and ask, how could we be doing better within our own organizations as professionals in the global development sector to support the women in our ranks to move into greater leadership positions? And how could we support organizations to be paying more attention internally around these issues of gender equity, which we may have been applying in our work in other countries, but there was room for strengthening organizations. So as we say, there was an opportunity for great organizations to be even greater and for strong leaders to be even stronger. And I wanted to focus on this work. One of the catalysts for me is that during my career, because I started, in my mid-20s, so I was quite young when I moved into a leadership position. But what I observed over my career is that I had a lot of young and mid-career women who came to me for mentoring and advice. I think who were like, wow, you're a woman leader who's sort of blazing a trail. You look young, you're short. I didn't have the trappings of what maybe a classic leader looks like. So yes, I am Caucasian, and I was privileged to get a good education, and I had all those trappings of privilege. But at the same time, a lot of leaders in our sector were men. A lot of trailblazers were men. Certainly older people, older women and men.
Older people.
And so and I mentor as much as I can, and I sponsor, meaning, I call out high performers and seek to give them a spotlight and provide opportunities to them, like kind of leverage my network for them. But there's only so much you can do as an individual person. And I felt that there was a role I could play in helping organizations kind of do more to support women leaders, and also to connect, emerging women leaders younger in their career, to really connect them with other like-minded peers and with older mentors, so that we could create more of a culture, more of a wave, a movement around greater women into leadership positions.
Yeah, brilliant. Because this is phenomenal. Because the experience that you might be having, people say, where is the leader? Where is the CEO? The old people are often sitting on the president seat or a CEO seat, or being at the leadership position. They say, where exactly is the leader? Yes, the similar experience that we often have. So Fiona, you have established this women innovators and leadership network. And this is something that is happening in October, by the way. Those people who are listening to me right now, you should be visiting this website, wldleadershipforum.org, and 26th of October is the date. I must acknowledge that Fiona has accepted this invitation to speak on the occasion when it must be crazy times in handling and connecting all this, and this conference is happening. Fiona, please share with us what is this network is all about. What are the important contours of this? How this network is making a lot of impact connecting people from across the world. I've seen a lot of conversations are happening that there are a lot of women leaders are participating. They're sharing their experiences from across the world. So what is exactly this network? And as you are a social enterprise, you're a social entrepreneur. So how this network is working? This is for all those people in Pakistan, of course, in the region and in my network. They might be interested to know as well that how this works as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. So the URL is www.wildleadershipforum.org. And we warmly invite your audience to check out our 3-day virtual forum, which is taking place October 26th, 27, and 28, next month. So the Women in Global Development Leadership Forum is the first and largest conference on advancing women's leadership, equity, diversity, and inclusion in the global development sector. And we have created this agenda of interactive sessions, plenaries, masterclasses, networking, with the purpose to increase the power and influence of women and diverse leaders in the global development sector. So we have about 130 organizations participating. We're up to close to 400 participants attending from around the world. We have just added an Asia track. So there'll be programming that's in your time zone because we wanted to ensure that our women colleagues and male allies in Pakistan and the region could also be full participants in the event. So we really hope that you'll join us. And we have some exciting things going on in that we have a focus on actionable learning. So every speaker, ranging from CEOs and executive directors down to over to program associates, people working in human resources, everybody who is speaking, and we have about 70 different speakers. All of the speakers have a focus on actionable learning. So they want to offer you information that you can learn about in the session and then take and apply to your own life or take and apply to your own organization. And we know that networking is really important. So we've not only is it about kind of knowledge exchange, but also making sure that you can have great human connection, catching up with people you've maybe met before, or expanding your network with new people.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, and who are the people who are delivering these sessions? Is it like a workshop, or it's plenary, or it's discussions, or what is the dimension of this conversations?
Yeah,
How you are conducting that?
Yeah. So it'll work. So everyone from our plenary speakers to our workshop leaders have interactivity built into their sessions. And that's a little bit unusual, right? So every single session is going to have a chance for you to interact with other participants and to interact with the speakers. So for example, we have one of the speakers that we have a lot of excitement around is hearing from Stephanie LeBlanc-Godfrey. She's the global head of inclusion of women of color at Google. So she's going to be talking about psychological safety, like how you create psychological safety as a leader, how you can express yourself if you feel like you can't show up as your full self at work. So she's one of our opening speakers. We also have Pat Mitchell. So Pat Mitchell is the founder and host of TED Women. She was also the first female president of PBS and of CNN Productions. So she has been an amazing female trailblazer in all kinds of areas. And she's currently very active as a trustee at the Skoll Foundation and the Acumen Fund. Her keynote is on the topic of becoming a dangerous woman. So this is really her talking about, and maybe people have said that about you and I and many of your viewers, right? How to becoming a dangerous woman, like women who are stepping out and making change. And she was just a dynamic speaker. And then we know it's also important to hear from the donors in the global development sector. So we have people from USAID speaking about the work that they're taking internally to be more inclusive, both within their organization and in their programming. We have CEOs and executive directors of leading development organizations like Plan International, of Tetra Tech, of Chemonics, ACD Avoca, Apt Associates. We have people from the media. We have a journalist from the Wall Street Journal who's done a lot of writing about male allies and how men can be allies to women and how women can be allies to women. So we're pretty excited about the lineup. And I find that all these people that have stepped forward to say, I want to share my knowledge, or I want to share my research, or I want to share my tool, they're all coming with the perspective of that they are both speakers at this event, but they're also there to participate and to really learn from others. So I'm excited about the networking opportunities we're
Oh
bringing
yes,
to
I
people
am
as well.
too excited to hear. I mean, this is such a phenomenal experience for anybody who might be joining your, this forum. Oh, and this is online, right? This is
Yeah,
online, always.
it's all exactly.
And earlier you had planned all of them as physically, right? So this one is virtual, or is it the
Exactly.
combination of both? Is it
Yeah,
combination of
no,
both? Yeah.
100% virtual this year. And
Okay.
a silver lining of that is that we have participation from, it's easy now for people around the world to participate.
Exactly.
So that we know that that makes it easier for people to participate. We know that
Yeah.
the value of live events is really chatting with people in the hallways and over meals. And that's why
Exactly.
we've placed this big emphasis on interactivity so that even though it's going to be virtual, people will really feel like they're connecting with others.
Oh, brilliant! That would be amazing. Anybody who would like to, ask question to Fiona, because this is such an amazing, it's timely that, in Pakistan we had a lot of startups and entrepreneurial venture has been started as well. There are a lot of people who had, began their work. They're not only working in different development sector, but social enterprises or several, helping the community and build money as well. So Fiona, I have seen that you also remain connected to, and you've been teaching in one of the leading school of business. So what are the subjects that you're teaching there, or is it like skills or kind of workshop learning, or skill learning teaching? It's not academic, or is it particularly related to the skills that you're sharing with your students or participants of the courses that you teach in the School of Business? So I'm focusing on both of them as different, because sometimes you are a bookworm but you don't know the skills, right? So you know the skills but you cannot translate that into theoretical understanding. So you are kind of a bridge between both. So your the School of Business that you're teaching currently right now in Georgetown University. So what are the skills that you're teaching and sharing with the students?
Well, thanks for asking. So I think I'm doing a little bit of everything you just mentioned with my fabulous co-professor, Karam Zaman. He and I are teaching a business startup class. So this
Oh, wow.
class is called Launching the Venture. And it's we take students through the journey of when you have a business idea,
Mm-hmm.
and then how do you explore the viability? Like, how do you find what customers actually want? Because as you know, the reason the majority of businesses never get off the ground or go out of business is because they never fully understood what the customer wants. Because what
Yeah,
I want as the founder, is not necessarily what the customer wants. So we're really
exactly.
building the skills and the mindset amongst our students to be very customer focused. And there are frameworks and methodologies that are really considered the best practice for how to explore the viability of a business idea. And if 10 years ago, people were writing 50-page business plans, that is now like thrown out the window.
Yes.
Today, it's all about sort of customer discovery, like lean startup, and using these frameworks that anybody can learn. So anyone in your audience can learn these frameworks. That's really about understanding what the customer is looking for, understanding their pains, how they're being served now and how they're not being served, so that you can develop a product or service and ultimately a business model that really, answers to what the customer is looking for. But the second, so those are some frameworks and skills that we teach. But the second thing is that we're also developing their leadership skills. We're developing the skills that tie into what you and I have been talking about a little bit, which is how to lead yourself first. So how to show up as a member of a team as a strong leader, and being a strong leader, you know, at the heart of that is really serving others. Yes. And certainly, from my own experience, I feel like my early businesses could have been more successful. I could have had more impact faster if I had received more leadership training earlier on in my career. So what Professor Zaman and I are seeking to do is to build these leadership skills right out of the gate, so that even at university, the students are learning in startup environments, as people who want to be change makers in the world, how they can both have these kind of technical skills, but also these leadership skills, which we know will help them go farther, faster.
Exactly. And while I was going through your profile, of course, I'm following you and learning a lot of things from you. Yeah. One of the things that, I've seen that you've also been teaching in the Georgetown schools for foreign service, which is kind of closer to my heart because of myself as somebody who has, break barriers for creating diplomacy as entrepreneurial journey of mine. I will be sharing that later in our private chat as well. And of course, I regularly share with my audience and viewers as well. So how the School of Foreign Service, as somebody who is an entrepreneurial background, having the social enterprise. So what are your role there? What are you teaching? And what you're still attached to it? And I mean, those people who are in the foreign service, I mean, this combination is exciting for me and for people around. It's also interesting to know more about your presence there as well, teaching foreign service people about entrepreneurship or leadership, something like that.
Well, so what's interesting is that I have found that Georgetown School for Foreign Service is a hotbed of social innovators. There is so much entrepreneurial activity coming out of the School for Foreign Service. And
really,
I think that the heart with which the students there want to be change makers in the world, and that the ideas they have for how to tackle some of our most important social issues is very, very inspiring. So I was teaching there in the last academic year. I was teaching design thinking, and I also was part of a team that was leading sort of like an intensive design thinking experience. So I'm not teaching there this semester, but as an entrepreneur in residence, I continue to mentor and consult and support with the School for Foreign Service students. But I appreciate the point that you're making, that when we hear business school, we think, oh, that's the natural place where we'll find entrepreneurs. And what I have learned at SFS is that it feels to be like equal numbers of entrepreneurs there. And, perhaps there are greater numbers of people who have a social bent to their idea, but I don't know. I don't know that is actually entirely accurate, because we also have so many social innovators in the business school. But I think, also if we look at you as a role model, right? It's this idea that there's many ways to be a change maker, and that the entrepreneurial traits that helps, let's say, kind of a more typical business entrepreneur go far are the same kinds of traits that exist in most of the population. This idea of seeing something that you think could be changed and be better, galvanizing people around an idea, staying resilient, perseverant in the face of challenges. Right? I'm sure this is how you live your life. And,
exactly. I mean, because of my own entrepreneurial journey of the Diplomatic Insight magazine for the last 13 years, something which is different in a sense, that people were thinking that how diplomacy can be a cash cow, or can be helped, build relationship. How can you make money out of diplomacy or creating relations amongst countries? But it is it's a big business, of course. When you see people not able to connect, you can, it's the place where you build your own network, right? So my question was that, for example, foreign service, or we see unconventional departments or societies where we're thinking that, okay, this cannot be a business model, right? For example, for the last 20 or 10 years, people were not thinking that, okay, climate change or helping people to come out from any environment disaster can be a social enterprise, right? So for instance, like that, in resolving issues, or something unconventional. So what are your thoughts on that? Because sometimes you go on a different dimension. Okay, it's obvious that, yes, business school can give you training or skills to be a next leader or business leader, right? It's obvious, but sometimes unconventional departments, or sides or sectors or industries where these things can happen, but nobody thought about it. What are your thoughts on that? Or how, I mean, that comes to the point of innovation, right?
Yes, yes. Well, what I observe is that universities, that the Foreign Service, INGOs, civil society organizations that are so active on these topics, the government itself, as you say, has recognized the need to embrace innovation, right? And innovation can take all kinds of forms. And certainly, if you're someone who wants to work for change within an organization, so if you're inclined to be like an intrapreneur, let's say, versus an entrepreneur, but an intrapreneur who wants to work for change within organizations, I think the climate is more open for that than it ever has been before. And there are even sort of like divisions or posts that are specifically about innovation. And I think that the younger career professionals who are entering the field of foreign relations, who are entering into diplomacy, I think that they are being well prepared, for example, by many universities at the university level, who are recognizing the importance of students understanding economics, about understanding best principles in innovation. I mean, my role at the School for Foreign Service in the last academic year was really giving students like hands-on experiences with innovation, as well as having them understand frameworks for innovation that they could take forward later in their careers. And what I always think is so important, so let's say if you're a younger professional out there who wants to be in the field of foreign service and who's also interested in innovation, I think now is your time to build your skill sets and your networks in both areas, because there is so much need to tie in with private sector initiatives. There is so much need to harness the power of social entrepreneurs. There's also the need to harness, the power of large multinational companies. So I feel like there's never been a time, and in fact, it feels very critical to me that those involved in diplomacy are also open to and are like learning those key concepts and skills so that they can be some of the bridge builders. And maybe it is going to be the younger career professionals who are more likely to be those bridge builders to really radical new ways of doing things and innovation than perhaps some of the older career professionals.
Yeah. So for Fiona, one of the important thing is education. You had been a board chair for campaign for female education in the USA Foundation, right? So what is that, and what are your role there as a chair? And of course, you had been serving at different positions, not only as board chair but member of the board as well. For example, Junior Innovation Worldwide and different such similar kind of organizations. So your focus has remained young people, innovators, and women leaders as well. So specifically about campaign for female education, which is also closer to my heart as well.
Right. So I feel like my life mission and my real belief is that everybody is capable of incredible things given the opportunity. and that the opportunity comes in the form of education. The opportunity comes in the form of mentorship and sponsorship and access. It comes in the form of access to financial services. So we're all capable. Everyone who's in this conversation is capable of incredible things, and we all need help in order to be able to really, fully express and achieve what it is that I think we can achieve. So I believe that in my core, and that drives all of my work. So it's really a privilege for me to be on the board of governors for Junior Achievement Worldwide. So also referred to as JA, also active in Pakistan and in the countries in the region. And JA is doing incredible work of bringing entrepreneurship and workforce and financial literacy, skill building into classrooms, right from young kids through to the university level. And they do that by working with volunteers so that people in the local community and the local business community can come into classrooms, and using this very hands-on experiential curriculum that Junior Achievement provides, they are building these skills, teaching these classes in classrooms, and then they have a number of country, regional, global competitions. So if you have any young people watching, I strongly encourage them to check out Junior Achievement. Or if you are an educator or a parent and you like the idea of your children getting exposed to, learning and doing entrepreneurial activity early on, JA could be a great choice for them. And I was also very privileged to be a former board chair and board member for about 10 years of CAMFED, which is the Campaign for Female Education. So CAMFED, I think, does incredible work supporting girls to get into school, so rural low-income girls to get into school in several African countries, to stay in school, and then to be part of a network, a Pan-African network of low-income girls who have been in the CAMFED program. So I think they're doing wonderful work. I think they really look at breaking the cycle of poverty requires education, and it requires supporting girls even when they finish their education to go on to higher education or to have income generating activities. And I think they have this very special piece of networking girls who grow into young women with other young women to be part of a network that continues to offer them the kind of support and role models that you and I know have been so important in our lives.
Yeah. Wow, this is brilliant. I mean, those people, anybody who is listening to us right now and this conversation with Fiona, who is the founder and CEO of the Women Innovators and Leaders Development Network. Wild is the word, amazing network that Fiona is looking after. And because of her phenomenal experience, phenomenal, support to not only female leaders but young people, Marshall Goldsmith has given you, leadership thinker, in the Forbes as well. You have been also given your presence there in the Forbes magazine as well, as you've been, enlisted there by his program. So, Fiona, my question from you is that these kind of landmarks, these kind of, bucket list that you are mostly entrepreneurs who are working and having the drive to move ahead, these kind of, achievements or milestones, what are the significance in your life? For instance, if you are becoming the Forbes, in the list of the Forbes, in the list of the global thinkers. So what is the significance of having these milestones in your life?
Well, just to clarify, I think Marshall Goldsmith was named as the #1 leadership thinker in Forbes. And I feel very privileged to have been selected to be in a network of leaders that he is sharing much of what he knows. And so Marshall's been, very influential in me in terms of accelerating my leadership growth and some of the leadership habits and behaviors that I have adopted and am seeking to share with others. And so, sorry, Farhat, could you just your question one more time?
My question was, Fiona, that these kind of landmarks and what is the significance of these kind of landmarks in your life? For example, like we social entrepreneurs, we always say, okay, when we'll achieve this, this will be the
Yeah.
landmark, right? So when we'll
Yes.
achieve becoming into the Forbes list of 30, or
Right.
given the bigger, any milestone. So
Yeah.
what is your what are those in your life, and how you have defined them in your life, for
Yeah.
instance?
Farhat, I love the question and what you're saying, because I think it boils down to this idea about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So what is it
Yeah.
within us that motivates ourselves? And then
Yes.
what is it that we're receiving from external forces and people that motivates us? And I think as social innovators, something that is very important is that we are clear on what our intrinsic motivations are. And I
Mhm.
say that as someone who, kind of like yourself, has spent a lot of time out on that branch, like innovation branch, where it can often be very lonely because you're trying to do things in a new way. You're doing a lot of selling of ideas to others.
Yeah.
And there's always 9 no's before you get a yes. So how do you keep yourself going during the
Yes.
9 no's? Like that has to come from within. Otherwise you probably you're going to be a very like frustrated, anxious person who might be achieving good in the world, but actually you're not feeling good. So I think understanding our purpose and understanding how we choose to live our lives and express ourselves through the entrepreneurial work we do, I think is extremely important. Now, at
Mhm.
the same time, I wish I could say that extrinsic motivation just is not important to me at all, but that is not the case. Like I need those like shots in the arm, right? Like, you know what? An
Yes.
award feels really, really good. People
Yes.
saying, Fiona, you're doing a great job. People saying, Fiona,
Exactly.
I want to support what you're doing. Um,
Yes.
like you inviting me to speak today is a great honor, and that feels great to me. So the extrinsic rewards, in my view, or in my experience, have also been important.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have learned the lesson over my life to understand the difference and
Yes.
to make sure that in chasing the external validation, I'm not actually being distracted from some of the most like sort of important action
Exactly.
items that I need to be focused on. And
Okay.
while to enjoy the benefits of them, not, ultimately to place greater importance on what comes from within me and the good relations that I have and, with my family and my close friends, because ultimately that is more sustaining than, likes on Facebook or comments on LinkedIn or kind of, or speaking
Yeah.
invitations. It's
Yeah.
it's a balance. We just need to get the
Yeah.
balance right.
Exactly, exactly. Fiona, one of the important thing in our lives is failure, right? So how you define failure for yourself over the course of 20 years of experience of working, um, especially in the social entrepreneurial journey of yours. What are those failure moments that you think that you had shaped you and thought made you who you are today, a furious, dangerous woman, right? You know, so how you have came out of those failures, and what has helped you to come up those failures? I'm sure that there must be a lot of them. 20 years saying is easy, but it's difficult. But I know there might be a lot of failures, but how you came out of them and make yourself drive through all those challenges?
Yeah. Well, firstly, to be clear, I think failure really sucks. All those memes like, oh, what doesn't kill you make you stronger. I'm like, what doesn't kill me was really, really hard. So I just want to be clear, like, I'm not someone who's like in the glorification of failure camp. Like, I think failure is really tough.
Yeah.
And, people
Yes.
fail by losing money. That's really tough. You fail by being embarrassed. That's really tough. You fail because you disappoint people, yourself. That's all really tough. And it's part of the ride, right? Like, as you say, it is part of the ride. And
Yes.
I think it is connected to what we were talking about a moment ago, And I think a lot of it has to do with, can you fail and pick yourself up, right? Dust yourself off and say, I failed for good reasons, or I'm comfortable with what I did to fail. So, of course, we talk in the entrepreneurship world about failing forward. So if you're going to fail at something, we hope it doesn't cost you too much in terms of money or time. So going back into what I was talking about before about how we kind of teach entrepreneurship these days, the goal is that is to really do a series. Let's say if you're sort of talking about getting a new idea off the ground, either as a social entrepreneur or a different kind of entrepreneur, is that you want to take these kinds of small experiments that don't take much time and don't cost much money, in order to see if your business idea, if your business model has viability. So just to the entrepreneurs out there and the intrapreneurs out there, these methods of customer discovery are worth reading up on. There's a lot of great free material on the website. There's ways to experiment where the cost of failure is low. And in fact, you go into it knowing you're going to have a series of sort of small failures or things that don't really take off, but you're doing that in a way that is going to that is manageable, and you really do truly learn from some of these other things.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, oh gosh, I got so many failures. I've had so many failures. I think some of the, failures that came earlier in my career were from just being so focused on the mission and kind of on the achievement of certain goals, that I wish if I could go back, as my current self could go back to my 28-year-old self or 30-year-old self, it would be to teach that person the importance of this kind of of making sure that you're showing up in a way that is as positive as possible, and that you're constantly supporting others around you to shine, because that is the role of a leader. And I think the reason that we are very stretched and often inexperienced, we have so much going on, we feel that the task is the priority, and we haven't yet learned that actually it's the people that are the priority. So that is very much front and center of my leadership now. But I think that has been a 20-year journey of growth to get there.
Oh wow, that's brilliant answer. Another question from Fiona before we ask people as well for the questions. Many of them had asked a lot of questions from you. Is that as you've been begin in past 5-6 years, you've been working specifically focusing on women leaders, right? So what are the challenges that you saw in them, especially when they are on the entrepreneurial journey or they're leading companies? What are the women leaders face, as general as you're going through and helping them? So, and how you help them to come out of those challenges? Sometimes about financial as well, and of course the leadership and the drive in them inside, as you were sharing about intrinsic or outside. So what are the challenges that women face generally? I think that is similar there across the world. I mean,
yeah. Well, I think across the world, right? So women are capable of incredible things, and perhaps because we are so capable, we also carry so much.
Yes.
Right? It is like it's like so much that you're carrying.
Yes.
And it is the work in the home and around the home, and it is the work, managing social, the social lives and social circle of our families. It's the community contributions that we're making. So I think what I want to say about that is that, really just like a huge, just bravo and round of applause to all of the women engaged in this conversation, because we see you and we know that you are working hard. And for most of that work that you're doing, nobody will ever say thank you. It will not be acknowledged. So allow Farhat and I to say,
thank you.
And to recognize the great work that you're doing. So one of the concepts I have found very helpful is recognizing that each week has 168 hours. That's it. And no matter who you are in the world or how much money you have or don't have or power, you can't change that, right? There's 168 hours in the week. And if you think about taking away time for sleeping and eating and just like, we're actually working with a fairly limited number of hours. And I'm sure that the women in your network who are watching in this conversation, but these are ambitious women. So you've got limited time, you've got ambition, and of course, like ambition in our professional lives. And we also have ambitions and goals in our family lives, and our personal lives. So treating time as a precious resource would be my advice. So if time is a precious resource, how are you deploying your time so that you can create the professional, personal life that is the life that you want? And maybe you have some strategies around that, Fahad. You're a woman who gets a lot done in a week. So I'd be curious to know like how you make sure that you're, getting done what needs to be done, and enjoying the ride.
Exactly. Yes, I think that we need to focus. I mean, this is such an important message that you had shared. And of course, challenges do come in your life, and you need to strategize yourselves that how you want to spend time uh, to the family, to your work, or balance your own ambitions. Yes, you're right, so right that women around me are ambitious, and they want to do something brilliantly, brilliant. But sometimes we also get distracted because of several reasons around us. So we need to strategize to how to build around and how to help ourselves to build our dreams forward. So Fiona, over the time period, we have also seen that women get disappointed by and easily get disappointed because of the challenges. And this year, 2020, has caused us a lot of disappointments and challenges, especially in times of COVID-19, and how Fiona and the women around and women leaders that you had in contact with, or your network that you're working with, helped women in the COVID-19 period, which was something um, totally different, the challenges that we had before, and this was a new challenge. So what was your advice to the women around, and how your own network shaped and helped those women come out of the challenge, especially when you're building and helping them in the social enterprise or pure business models, especially in these times, tough times.
Yeah. Well, I have just observed so many women and men who have been incredible heroes in their families, ensuring stability amongst many generations in their families, and having to make incredible adaptations in how they work and the work that they're doing. So I just to recognize that the world has been in, it's such a challenging place, for what's going on for what feels like a very long time at this point. And I think people have really stepped up, and it's been sort of unique that the whole globe has shared the same experience at the same time. So I think I feel like the most important thing is that, women are ensuring that they are doing what they need to do to take care of themselves so that they can take care of others. It's the classic example, right? Like put the oxygen mask on yourself first to
And
ensure that you're able
exactly.
to take
Exactly.
care of the others that depend on you. And I think the second thing is to ask for help when you need it. So I think that amongst the women leaders in the global development sector who I'm in regular contact with, they this is a strong group of women, incredibly capable, dedicated group of women. And I think that where at times when they've needed to ask for help and they have asked for help, that has been, just really great for them. And I think we're all in this situation right now. Sometimes we are the givers of help and sometimes we are the askers of help. And I think staying open to both asking and giving is really how we're going to all get through this COVID period.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Fiona. And before
Thank
we
you.
sign off, I mean, before we say goodbye to many friends who are here around us, um, my question or my request to you is to share a message to all those social entrepreneurs like myself always get distracted, but let's have a word of wisdom from an experienced person as yourself, who's heading such a large network of women leaders and of course young leaders, and helping people to reach their dreams and goals. So what is your message to all those who are listening us to us right now?
Yeah. Well, you are capable of incredible things. You are already doing incredible things, and you are capable of even more. So decide on what those things are, and then treat those 168 hours that you have every week as precious time so that you can focus on the things that are most important to you and that will enable you to make your mark in the world. It's okay to say no to some things.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Fiona. I mean, this was such a wonderful conversation that we are having, and many of the people from across the world and across Pakistan are sending their love to you on our chat box, on our messages. And I mean, most of the questions that I had shared with you are came from the registrations that we had. I mean, this is something that I always look forward to, learning from you and experience social entrepreneur. Of course, building leaders, and as you rightly said, that when you invest on yourself to be a good leader, or leader who work in the crises, on helping your own enterprise, then you're able to navigate through all those challenges that come what may, even if you are a man or a woman, it's regardless of that, almost this also happened with all of us. Thank you so much. There are a lot of love has as I shared with you. Thank you so much everybody for joining us. This was our another amazing episode. A woman of strength joined us from all the way from US, Fiona Macaulay, who is the CEO of the Women in Leaders Network, Development Network, and the event is happening on 21st October, Fiona?
Yeah,
21st October, right?
October
21st
26th,
or 24th?
October 26th,
Oh,
27, and
26th of
28.
August. Yes.
The Women in
So
Global
this is
Development
it. You
Leadership
have to
Conference.
sign up. Exactly. So you have to sign up for the updates of for October 26, 2020. It's happening in Washington, and it's
We're
also
virtual this year.
online. You can learn.
It's virtual.
It's this year. This is yeah. This is virtual. This is happening right. The preparation are happening. Registration is open. You all need to go and see that, and of course learn from those who are leading the world, right? And especially on the development, those people who are working on the development side, a lot of skills and resources are there for you to receive, and of course use in your own leadership places, your own organizations, help people learn. Thank you so much, Fiona, for joining us. Thank you so much for giving us such an important time. And of course, learning from you is an asset for all of us. I hope that those people who would go back and watch this podcast, they will learn more. And I hope that we'll continue inviting great women in our conversation. There are a lot more is coming, and I'll be announcing something very special tonight as well. Thank you so much everybody for joining us, and thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
your question. I had shared with you, Fiona. You have to stay for a while before we say sign off to everybody. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon, inshallah. And if you have more questions, you can write to Fiona. She's also on LinkedIn. She's also on Facebook as well, or on Twitter as well. So you can write to her, share questions, your stories, whatever you like. So thank you so much, Fiona. Thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Good night, and see you soon.
See you
Thank you
soon.
so much.
Inshallah. Thank you. Bye-bye.